Speak on this show, episode 24 in the year 2022. It's 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. This is what we do every Saturday morning here on the Speak on the Show. Y'all ready? Let's go and get this started. Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On. I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there today? Early Saturday morning. 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. That's what we do here every Saturday morning. Speak On the Show. Let's go on and get into this. Let's get into this. Got a good show for you today. rwcoolins.com. That's the website. All social media platforms, R.W. Coolins. You can follow me. Hey, like, share, do what you do. Listen. Tune in. Also, we're broadcast live on YouTube and Facebook this morning. Also, you can download after the show on audio. If you just want to listen to the audio, you can listen on Spreaker.com, or you can go to Apple iTunes under the Speak On the Show, search Speak On the Show, and you can have the audio there. My lighting is a little jacked up this morning. I don't know what's going on, y'all. Let me adjust some things here. Hope it's clear to y'all. All right. Anyway, as I was saying, Speak On the Show. Call in number 844-904-2665, 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say. If you decide to call in, if you decide to chime in, make a comment, whatever you choose to do, make sure you say what you mean and mean what you say. That's what we do here. We come in as commenters. We come in as friends, but we leave as family. That's what we do here on the Speak On the Show every Saturday morning. September 24th. Mark your calendar, September 24th, 10-year anniversary for the Speak On the Show. 10-year anniversary. We've been doing this 10 years strong. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it's been 10 years in the making for the Speak On the Show. So we're going to have a good show on 24th September, same time, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. OT will be hosting, the man who put me on. So make sure you tune in, listen in, and not sure what he got in store, but we're going to take it from there. We're going to do some things on this Speak On this show that we've been doing for 10 years. Changes coming. We're going to make some changes, some little tweaks here, tweaks there, but nothing major, nothing out of the ordinary for, a podcast, radio show, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're going to do here. Oh, man, 10 years. Wow. Yeah, 10 years I've been on this microphone doing what I do. So it's an Unscripted Saturday, y'all. It's Unscripted Saturday. Let's start off with this. I seen something a couple days ago. It's the 8th annual Chuck Brown Day back there in D.C. The Godfather Go-Go. It's the Godfather Go-Go celebration back in D.C. They got a big lineup going on. If you're in D.C., go. If you're not in D.C., or if you're in D.C., you can't get tickets, or you ain't planning to get tickets, play a little Chuck Brown today. I'm going to turn mine on after the show, listen to a little Chuck Brown, because Chuck Brown don't give a what? Michelle Long, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Chuck Brown, we grew up on Chuck Brown back there in the DMV. So anytime there's a celebration for Chuck Brown, we all like to be a part of that. So if you got some Chuck Brown, look, if you don't know who Chuck Brown is, look it up on YouTube. Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers was back in the day. I Need Money, all the old hits, Bustin' Loose, go check them out on this 8th annual Chuck Brown Day. Check them out. So let's go on and get into this Unscripted Saturday. Let's get it going. Georgia election interference. They got problems down in Georgia. Not for the people in Georgia, for the people that was trying to stop the election. Georgia is looking mighty dirty and mighty muddy for some folks who call themselves politicians who say they on the up and up. Fannie Willis, the Attorney General down there in Georgia, this week interviewed in front of the grand jury Rudy Giuliani for 6 to 7 hours. And we don't know what all was said, what he brought out and everything, but Rudy Giuliani was the driver of the car that was accusing people of voter fraud and everything down like that down in Georgia. So Fannie Willis, the attorney general down there, district attorney, I'm sorry, the district attorney is investigating this voter fraud and the electors and all that down there. And Rudy Giuliani testified this week. Also, Lindsey Graham was subpoenaed. He's trying to fight having to go in front of her and the grand jury. But guess what? Judge said that Lindsey Graham will have to testify in front of the grand jury. So that's a good thing. He needs to come out and say what he was a part of, whether he was a part of this corruption or not. And then Donald Trump is up next. Donald Trump may have to sit for the grand jury in Georgia as well. So these things are starting to take their course as far as what they did to manipulate or try to manipulate the election, back in, January 6th, all that kind of stuff that went on. So we know all about that. We know what's going on. We're going to watch and see what happens. My lips look so greasy. What happened down there in Georgia, but hopefully it comes out. And if people need to be held accountable, that they're held accountable for what they did in that interference of the election for those folks in Georgia who went out and did their due diligence voting. But also this week, we've been talking about the quote unquote raid on Mar-a-Lago, what was going on down there with Trump and everything like that. But this week, I seen this thing where Sean Hannity, everybody knows Sean Hannity on Fox News, he came out with this statement. I'm going to read it in its entirety. It's not long, but it's long enough. But Sean Hannity said this: the same anti-Trump Washington-based FBI agents, the same exact department that conducted the Russia collusion witch hunt, just raided the president's personal home with a warrant from a judge who also hates Donald Trump, obtained by the Democrats in the Department of Justice who also hate Donald Trump, who have been anonymously leaking salacious rumors about the investigation to the anti-Trump Democrats and the media who are also based, you got it, in Washington, D.C. This is beyond horrendous. It is corrupt. It is an abuse of power. But wait, Attorney General Merrick Garland, he promised that the DOJ is not political and that he will speak through his court filings and a flurry of anti-Trump leaks. And there are rumblings, by the way, tonight that the Department of Justice absolutely, positively kept the Biden White House in the loop the entire time. Now, I want you to listen, and I know that's a lot to process, but I want you to think about this for a minute. Of everything I read that Sean Hannity said after the raid and going on, or when they went in and took the classified boxes and all that kind of stuff, the information that was there, as we talked about last week. Never once in this statement has anybody said that Donald Trump did not do what the Department of Justice went in there to take back from him, what he shouldn't have done. No defense up to this point have I heard them say he didn't do anything, or that what they say he had, he did not have. Every story I've heard has gone against the FBI, the Department of Justice, Joe Biden, so on and so forth, the Democrats, everybody other than the accountability of the person who actually did what they say he did. Now, I don't know about you, but I listen to all different channels. I listen to Fox, I listen to CNN, I listen to MSNBC, I listen to the Root. I listen to all these different stations just to get the information and see if anything is consistent in what they're saying. And the consistency I see is with Fox News is they're not talking about what was there. Now, I did see this other article where it says the Department of Justice believes former President Donald Trump may have been up to something nefarious. This is why they went to get the information back that they were supposed to get back. Now, as I was mentioned last week, this is when they went in and take those boxes back with all that classified information in it, which we still don't know what was in there, but the classified information that they knew that he had, he was subpoenaed for this information and was told to give it back. And he said, and I don't have it here, but he said something to the effect of, it's mine, not theirs. It's mine, not theirs. Then there's this, like they were saying, he declassified the information, but there's a process for all this. So all I'm saying in this, and I'm not going to stay on this too long today, but what I'm saying in all this is, it seems to me, and this is just me, it seems to me that there's a lot of defense or self-defense against the Department of Justice and what they did in their normal processes, rather than a defense of why Donald Trump had what he had at Mar-a-Lago. Let's just be honest about it. If you have these things and you haven't put up a defense yet to say why you felt you had them, why you needed them, and so on and so forth, but you're going against the people who came in to get it. That tells me one or two things. Either you're guilty, allegedly guilty, or you know you did something wrong, and now that you're being called on the carpet, you have no defense for it. Which one is it? Which one is it? Sharice Joseph, good morning. Appreciate support. Appreciate support. So they also said the FBI agents, well, it says something nefarious by stashing top secret government documents at his private resort in Florida. Now we can go on and on and on about this, but at the end of the day, what he did, he shouldn't have done. He knew he shouldn't have done it. FBI was trying to work with him, get him handed over peacefully, the way it was supposed to be done. He didn't want to hand it over. They went in and took it back. That's their right. That's what they can do. That's what they're there for. So anybody that has a problem with the FBI doing this, as people going out here talking about defund the FBI and all this, pay attention to the messenger. Listen to the message, but also pay attention to the messenger of who's saying it the loudest about defund the FBI at this moment. That's all I'm saying. Pay attention to who's saying it. And it's most of the time, in most cases, it's his supporters. Let's just be real. Also this week, NFL. I don't know if a lot of my listeners, a lot of y'all family members, still watch the NFL, watch football. I don't partake in it. I glance at it every once in a while, maybe watch pregame show here and there. It is what it is. But this week, Edward Allen, one little brother from the land of fools, Alabama. Good morning, my brother. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support. In the NFL and NFL Players Association and Deshaun Watson agreed to an unprecedented $5 million fine on top of an 11-game suspension. Now he was supposed to be suspended for 6 games. The NFL went back and they wanted to appeal it. So now they went in, they came up to an agreement, 11 games, $5 million fine. And what he was being suspended for was personal conduct policy stemming from 24 women making allegations of sexual misconduct during massage sessions. Let's just be real about it. 24 different women made sexual allegations against him during massage sessions. Okay. He signed a 5-year contract worth $230 million that's fully guaranteed. But they're saying during these 11-game suspension, he won't get paid. I'm not going to defend Deshaun Watson because I don't know Deshaun Watson. I don't know the women who came forward and said he sexually abused them during these massage sessions. Gary Burns, good morning, my brother. Good morning. We're not going to defend him. Not going to defend them. Not going to go against anything they say. But what I am going to do is I want to bring something to your attention from my view. For all you that still watch the NFL, still support the NFL, and looking at this mockery of a case and all that and everything, Sharice Joseph, the Watson mess is just that, a mess. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it becomes a mess because you have 24 women accusing this man who were giving him massages of sexual actions, sexual harassment, sexual abuse, so on and so forth. 24 women saying the same thing. And he was not charged criminally. He was charged civilly. Criminal is jail time. Civilly is money. Let's just be honest. So they found him not guilty on the criminal charges, but he was found guilty on the civil charges. So he has to pay these women. 2 women, I think, were holding out. One now is still not taking any money. She said he has no more shown no more remorse or anything for what he did, and so on and so on and so forth. But let me get back to where I stand on this. From the outside looking in, the NFL, as well as all these other institutions that paid these athletes millions and millions of dollars, they tend to try to gloss over the fact that these people do these type of acts and everything like that. Hold on 1 minute. Edward Allen wasn't an issue until he left Houston for Cleveland. Yeah, it wasn't an issue because they were in the mix of it. I mean, he sat out all last year while he was in Houston, so he was still a member of the Houston Texans when he had to sit out, if I recall correctly. They sat him down for the year while the investigation was going on, but there was no charges brought criminally, but civilly, that's what they did. And then Houston decided to trade him to Cleveland. Cleveland took on that ownership of whatever was going, whatever baggage he had with him and everything like that. But I digress. Let me get back. So the NFL as a whole, We see this magnified about Deshaun Watson. But I want you to take Deshaun Watson's name out of it and put your everyday person that you may know into this equation. And let me know if it's the value of the athlete or the value of the women who were victimized. Is it the value of the athlete or the value of the women victimized? Now, nobody knows what happened but him and the victims, the accuser and the accused. That's the only people that truly know, because all we're getting is his side, her side. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Let's just be honest. However, when we talk about the NFL, we've seen this pattern too many times. You can talk about Ben Roethlisberger, which a lot of people don't want to bring up Ben Roethlisberger and the charges he had about sexual assault and under young girls at a college campus. Let's be real. It's been years ago. A lot of people won't remember. But the NFL took care of that, swept it under the rug, got it taken care of. Ben Roethlisberger went on to have a Hall of Fame career. He'll be in the Hall of Fame probably in the next 5 years because he retired as of last year. He'll be in the Hall of Fame within 5 years. And no one would talk about what happened with the charges he was up against. Not only in the NFL, but the NBA, the same thing. And I've talked about it, and God rest his soul, not to talk about today, but Kobe Bryant had the same situation as far as rape charge in Colorado when he was up there for a knee surgery and allegedly raped this young lady. The only reason he never got fined or charged with it because the young lady decided she didn't want to press charges or she didn't want to go through with the case, so they paid her off and everything like that. It was swept under the rug. Kobe Bryant went on to have a Hall of Fame career. See, these are the things we look at, and people that support Mark Cheeks, appreciate support, my brother, appreciate support. These are the things we look at, and we sit back and we side. Let's just be honest now. We side with these athletes because we're fans of what they do on the field. But we lose focus that they're human beings off the field, and they make the same mistakes that you, I, a cousin, nephew, or anybody else that we may know could make. Decisions they make. Because, and I'll bring this up because as I always tell you, I don't like to do comparisons, but I'm bringing facts up here. These are facts. These aren't comparisons. These are facts. We got R. Kelly about to do 30 years for the same type of situation, if you really think about it. Sexual abuse, per se. They got him on RICO charges, money laundering, all these different things were included, but the main focus was the sexual assault on these young ladies. So I asked the question, to many times over is what is it about celebrities, athletes, entertainers, they have these big name lawyers, big money lawyers that they can do a plea deal for something that you would never get an opportunity to do a plea deal from. And you see these things happen in the news, in the media, but we still support these people no matter what they do, no matter who they are, no matter what they get charged for. And we still sit and watch them on Sundays or during the NBA season or during the baseball season and so on and so forth, or make an album or do a video or whatever they do. And we continue to support them in what they do, even though they've been charged with these nefarious acts. Now, I'm not saying that they should be held accountable to death do they part from this earth, but we can't gloss over the fact that they've done these things and never take into account who the victims were in the process. Because I will go out on a limb and say if any of the victims in any of these Deshaun Watson cases were anybody related to any of you, you would have a different opinion about him as far as still playing in the NFL, still being employed by the NFL, and him being able to come to some agreement about an 11-game suspension. Now, I'm not saying the whole career should be taken away. However, there has to be consequences to these actions. This man signed a $230 million contract for 5 years. But it still doesn't have us oversight over the fact that he has flaws. Obviously, when you got 24 women in the same profession saying that he did these things. In most cases, they would call this stalking, predatory, all these things included. Now they're saying he's got to go to counseling and all these different things. That's fine. Okay, do what you do. But my biggest argument is not with Deshaun Watson, who has the issue. My biggest thing is not with the victims who have their problems and what's going on with them and the trauma they may deal with and all these different things. My problem is with the fans. Because you got some fans out here, depending on what team he's on. If he's on your team, he's okay, you're okay with the suspension and everything. But if he's not on the team you're on, or that you choose to support, you have a problem with it, say he should be gone for the whole year. And I'll go back again to somebody else, not a comparison, but a fact. With the Colin Kaepernick situation, everyone was up in arms about him taking a knee about oppression in this country against certain people that don't look like certain people in this country, all because of melanin content. You've heard me say it many times. To this day, Colin Kaepernick still does not have a job in the NFL because he decided to take a stance against something that we all know is relevant in this United States of America. He doesn't have a career in the NFL because he took a knee. Deshaun Watson gets a 5-year, $230 million contract in spite of the fact that he was up on charges by 24 different women for sexual assault. And you still choose to support the infrastructure, the institution of the National Football League that has employed Deshaun Watson and others like him over and over again. But Colin Kaepernick, who y'all all said I stand with Cap at one time, you understood what Kaepernick was kneeling about. You understood all these things at the time when Kaepernick was doing it. But which side are you on? What are we doing? You can't put your head in the sand in certain situations and not stand. You're going to stand. You know, Malcolm X said, a man who doesn't stand for something will fall for anything. So I'll ask again, because a lot of people on the countdown for the NFL season kickoff. And they're going to be plastered in front of TV. They're going to have their jerseys on. They're going to be supporting every team out there. But do you support those women who've been abused by Deshaun Watson? Do you support the woman's family that got killed by Henry Ruggs, who was doing 170 miles an hour in a car here in Las Vegas and ran into her car, and her and her dog burned up in the car because of his drunk driving and speeding? Now, I'm not saying everyone in the NFL should be held accountable for things that they haven't done. Guilty by association should never come into that. But what I'm saying is, look at the way that the NFL is handling these issues that they have. You can't, and here's the other part that I think a lot of us overlook, that is overlooked broadly. The NFL of all sports, the NFL has the largest female fan base of any professional sports in the United States of America. The NFL has the largest female fan support of any sport in the United States of America and maybe abroad. I'm not sure soccer may be a close one overseas. But when 24 women come up and say that this man sexually abused them during, some massages, why you need 24? I don't know. I think 2 hands is enough. That's total. What's that, 48 hands? What you doing? How bad are you injured? Sharice Joseph, people have double standards until it affects you. Exactly. And that's all I'm saying. I only bring this up not to try to impose my opinions on you. I just want you to look at things differently. Step back for a minute, look at the bigger picture. Because as I said, if this was happening to anyone in our family, anyone close to you, anyone you know, you'd be yelling from the rooftop. Now, should the NFL as a whole be held accountable for this? Well, it depends on who you are. But you can't hold the NFL accountable for what they did or did not do for Kaepernick if you're not going to hold them accountable for what they're doing for Deshaun Watson. Remember, Colin Kaepernick was never suspended. He was never suspended. He just wasn't able, nobody ever picked him up on a new contract. So he sued the NFL by blackballing him because he couldn't get a workout, couldn't get a tryout, couldn't get all those things. Then after he sued him, all of a sudden he got these tryouts, but the tryouts were just for visuals. They had no intentions for hiring him again because they worried about the fallout. So now the question would be, what kind of fallout are they worried about with Deshaun Watson when he comes back and does play? Because he already was at one preseason game and they were yelling from the bleachers about he's a rapist and all this kind of stuff. So if you're not worried about Deshaun Watson, why were you so worried about Colin Kaepernick? Oh, because it became political. Why am I so foolish? It was political. That's why. As we transition into this, a 16-year-old was denied an abortion in Florida. A 16-year-old orphan identified only as Jane Doe 22-B became pregnant and in the 10th week of her pregnancy sought to get an abortion this month in North Florida. The state law requires parental consent for minors to get abortions. Without parental consent, minors who become pregnant must petition a state circuit court judge to issue a judicial bypass to permit the abortion. And it says this: a Florida orphan loses her way in court. In this case, the girl's parents are both dead. She was living with a relative and had been assigned a guardian ad litem by the state. These are adults who are assigned to represent the best interests of the child in cases of child abandonment, neglect, or abuse. The girl submitted a handwritten 2-page application with the Escambia County Circuit Court that sought an abortion through a judicial bypass. The girl failed to check a box on the form. Now, watch this now. She failed to check a box on the form that would have provided her for free an attorney to represent her in this legal matter. An appellate judge later noted that due to this inexplicable failure to proceed without free legal representation, the girl needlessly put herself through a judicial ringer. So basically what they're saying is she did everything the way she was supposed to do it, except check a box for legal representation. So she went in front of this judge without legal representation. The judge said, wait a minute now, you don't have legal representation. Because you don't have legal representation, now they're putting her through the ringer. They're using her as an example. Has nothing to do at this point about abortion. It has to do with the fact that she didn't complete the paperwork correctly. She didn't check that she needed representation. And the fact that, this abortion ban in all these different states, and Florida is one of the harshest ones, they're making an example out of this 16-year-old girl that they're not going to make any waivers for anybody. And it says, if the minor's guardian consents to the minor's termination of her pregnancy, all that is required is a written waiver from the guardian, which the guardian did. The guardian agreed. Our guardian said that we're going to sign this because the father is not involved. He's not worthy, and he's not this. The young lady's still in school. She's trying to get her education. These were her reasons for wanting the abortion. However, this just being a paperwork matter, but instead she was put through a hearing designed for teenagers who wanted abortions against the expressed wishes of their parents. So let's get this right now. This young lady went and did everything she did except check one box about legal representation. She filled out all the paperwork and everything. But the process she went through, this hearing that she had to attend, was for teenagers who want abortions against the expressed wishes of their parents. Now, mind you, I mentioned in the beginning, she's an orphan. She's orphaned. Both her parents are dead. She has a legal guardian. But because she filled this paperwork out and it was completely wrong, they took her through the ringer, and now she's unable to get this abortion. They're going to make her carry this point because the judge said, and I'm not laughing at it, I'm laughing because of the concept. They said she's not mature enough to make the decision. The judge said she is not mature enough to make the decision to have an abortion. Even though she had the signatures from her guardian, it also said that this will be in her best interest. The judge said she is not mature enough to make a decision to have the abortion. And it says this, but a subsequent review of the trial court judge's ruling by a 3-judge panel in the First District Court of Appeal found that there was no need to overturn the trial's court decision, to deny the girl an abortion, or to send the issue back to the trial court for a future rehearing. The appellate court ruled that the girl had not established by clear and convincing evidence that she was sufficiently mature to decide whether to terminate her pregnancy. The denial of her abortion should stand with no rehearing necessary, the appeals court rules. Let that sink in. This is what it says. Let that sink in. This is an orphan teenager being denied an abortion because she doesn't have her dead parents' written permission. And then it says, and for those of you keeping score at home, if the state, based on inherent biases of a total of 4 judges, finds a traumatized, pregnant, orphan, underage teenager to be too immature to make important decisions about herself and to financially and emotionally unstable to even take care of her own needs, then she should be forced into non-consensual motherhood rather than an otherwise legal abortion. 16 years old, no mother, no father, making a decision for her future. Everybody may not agree with it. I tell you all the time, I'm pro-choice. Pro-choice. A woman has a right to choose. In these situations that we're reading about right here and other situations, the 10-year-old in Ohio, they had to cross state lines to get an abortion. Those are situations that aren't taken into account when this abortion issue comes up. It's not taken into account. Sharice Joseph was sex of the judge. Come on now. Come on now. You got to ask that question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But we can lean towards the fact that they're males. But I don't want to say that they are. It doesn't say. I didn't see where it said who the judges were. It just said a 3-judge panel. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna say there was at least one woman on there. I'm gonna say there was at least one woman on there, but I don't know. But the big picture is, what are we doing? What are we doing? Now, this was a case where this young lady got pregnant, having unprotected sex or otherwise, however it happened. She's pregnant. Let's deal with the facts as they stand. She's pregnant. She's trying to get her education. She's trying to move forward. She has made a mature decision in her mind that she should have this abortion in order to move forward in her life and everything like that. But the courts say she's not mature enough. She was mature enough to find out what the process was without a lawyer. She was mature enough to do the process as seen fit, except for check one box. And that's saying that she should have had legal representation. Because she didn't, they ran its course. Easy. Good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you. Okay. It is what it is. But these are the things we got to be careful. We got to watch. And we talk about these judges, and I got another one here about judges. I said something a couple of weeks ago, or it was last week. I can't remember because I say so much on this show and in my natural life. But I said something to the extent that we all have biases, we all have opinions and different things and stereotypes that we may not always act on, but we have them because they're here. It's things we've experienced. Our biases come from our experiences and what we see and what we know to be true. And we had these judges that just overruled the fact that this young lady should have an abortion. And then we go to these other judges. Now let me bring this one up. This is something that we talk about many times. 2 American judges have been ordered to pay over $200 million in collective damages after they were found to have been sending children to for-profit jails in exchange for financial kickbacks between 2003 and 2008. 2 judges ordered to pay $200 million in collective damages for sending children to for-profit jails in exchange for financial kickbacks for 5 years, between the years of 2003 to 2008. Cited as one of the worst judicial scandals in U.S. history, the miscarriage of justice, dubbed the Kids for Cash scandal, saw children as young as 8 years old. Let me say that again. Children as young as 8 years old residing in juvenile detention centers into court and then shipped off to 2 private lockup prisons. So they were pulling out of juvenile detention centers and sending them to for-profit jails, and they were getting kicked back. 5 years this went on. 5 years this went on. Pennsylvania Supreme Court has now thrown out some 4,000 juvenile convictions, including more than 2,300 children and teenagers. 79 of those who appeared in court were under 13. 79 of those kids were under the age of 13 when sentenced. The culprits are former judges Mark Civarella and Michael Conahan, who strategically, watch this now, this is to tell you how deep it was. They strategically shut down a county-run juvenile detention center in 2002 and accepted approximately $2.8 million in illegal payments from the builder and co-owners of 2 for-profit facilities. These are judges now, sitting on the bench, holding your future in their hands for a traffic ticket and so on and so forth and whatever, but they sent 79 under the age of 13 to prison. Not juvenile detention centers, prison, and made $2.8 million off of their futures. One of the judges who presided over juvenile court quickly established a zero tolerance policy that guarantees large and regular numbers of individuals will be sent to the privately run Pennsylvania Child Care and its sister facility, Western Pennsylvania Child Care, over a 5-year period. Those detained for some of those were petty theft, vandalism, and other minor misdemeanors. Many of them first-time offenders were quickly found delinquent and sent off in handcuffs to one of the two jails. Moreover, few of them ever got to argue their case or stand any real chance of a fair trial, and often didn't even get to say goodbye to their families. The long-running civil suit against the judges has been described by those representing the plaintiffs as the tragic human casualties of a scandal of epic proportions. One of the judges, Cavarella, is now serving a 28-year prison sentence for the Kids for Cash scandal. And Conahan, who was initially sentenced to more than 17 years in prison, was released to home confinement in 2020 due to the pandemic. He now has just 6 years left on his sentence. Now, it didn't break down, and I didn't research because I don't think it's that important, but I didn't break down the demographics of the people that they were sentencing. I didn't go into all that. I didn't see it anywhere. They didn't have it identified. Just know that 4,000 juvenile convictions involving more than 2,300 children and teenagers have been overruled, thrown out. This is how deep this goes. 5 years they were doing this. 5 years. D-Mac, morning, my brother. The emotional impact on the child is not considered. Never. See, this is, and you bring up a good point. I'm glad you mentioned this because we see these cases where somebody's done 5, 20, 15, 20 years, 30, 40 years or whatever. Then they say they give them a $400,000 or $8 million. And you can't get those years back because of money. You don't get those years back because of money. Money doesn't bring that youth back. Money doesn't bring those childhood experiences back. Money does not squash all the emotional impact, as D-Mac said, the emotional trauma, everything they went through being locked up for something as small as a misdemeanor, something as small as vandalism. And I say they're small, but if you're 12, 13 years old, between the ages of 8 and 13, 14, 15 years old, you do something like that and you don't get a chance to recover from a mistake you may have made at that time, the emotional impact, the psychological impact that is going to affect you for the rest of your life, no matter how much money they give you. It's not going to matter. And as I mentioned about jail, there's no rehabilitation. They just put you in there, lock the door and leave you in there, and you do what you got to do. Survive. That's it. It's about survival. Easy. We all know it. We all know it. We've seen it too many times. We hear about it too many times. We know people in our lives that we grew up with, friends with, played sports with back in the day that have been in and out of the system per se. Not because they're bad people, but because one bad decision has put them on a path of bad decisions from that point on because nobody takes the time to pull them back and say, let's change this behavior. Doesn't happen. And then when you talk to some people about it being jail, prison, being rehabilitation and everything, they say we shouldn't use taxpayer money to rehabilitate people. That's the mindset, which is why you have police officers that go out here and they come up on a scene of a disturbance or something like that. And you have an individual with some mental issues or mental health issues. And rather than try to talk the person down, they shoot first. And then they find out after the fact that this person has mental issues and so on and so forth, and that never taken into account. But then they come out with this after the George Floyds and all these other killings that we have by police, that they want to have people and get them trained on mental health and how to observe it and how to find it out. But you hear it at the time, but you haven't heard anything else about these initiatives to try to put this out there, to put, local policing into the local communities where the only time you see police is when something's wrong, not when everything's right. See, we don't look at that equation, but then when someone raids the house of a former president who's doing something illegal, they talk about defund the FBI. But when George Floyd happened, we said defund the police. Everybody was in an uproar because they said, well, if you didn't do what you needed to do, if you just comply, The police wouldn't have had George Floyd. Well, if the president would have just complied, they wouldn't have had to go in there and take them documents. Let's be real about this. See, this is where when society gets involved in these things and our biases and our stereotypes play a factor in that. If it hasn't happened to you or it hasn't happened to people that look like you tend to side with the fact of no matter how wrong it was right. But if you've had those experiences where you've been pulled over while driving while black, or you've been stopped just because of how you look and you're not supposed to be in a certain area per se, you get pulled over, you get stopped, you get asked these questions. It's just as simple as walking through a store and shopping, and because you haven't bought anything, you got somebody following you through the store, not because you look like you might steal something, but because of how you look, period. Until you've had those experiences, you may not understand why when we hear these stories about these kids going to jail and Donald Trump being able to get away with this, or these judges having to pay money rather than serve sentences for what they did to traumatize these countless numbers of young men and women. You won't understand until you've been and seen those experiences in your own family. And we speak so loudly about it because it's going on and on and on. And I'm going to go on a little rant here, because when we talk about slavery, we know what it was all about. We know what happened. And the trauma still exists because it's still going on today in a different concept, in a different way. No, it's not the bondage. It's not being in shackles. It's not having to be out there picking cotton in the fields or being beaten because you don't want to do what you're supposed to do. It's holding you back from being able to prosper in the country financially, holding you back from opportunities, not because of who you are, but because of how you look, and not because of the education value you may bring to the table. It's because the biases of those who are hiring for that position don't see you as being worthy to hold that position in their company. But then when we talk about these things, when we bring these things up, when they're brought to the forefront, it's always said there is no racism, there is no this, there is no that. There's always denial of these things are going on, but they happen over and over and over again. But when you see somebody like Deshaun Watson get charged, you got some people that are happy that he only, got an 11-game suspension, and you got other people say he should have been kicked out the league, so on and so forth. But with Ben Roethlisberger, everybody wanted to defend him and what he did. Nobody was in an uproar. They said they're lying on him. Were they? Or was that what you choose to see? Because Ben Roethlisberger was a, Hall of Fame quarterback early in his career, per se. See, we could go on this for all day, which leads me into the next conversation. Unfair housing practices. Let's talk about it. A Maryland couple has sued a local real estate appraiser and an online mortgage loan provider, alleging that the housing appraisal they received was unfairly low due to their race, in violation of the Fair Housing Act, after a second appraisal returned a result nearly $300,000 higher than the first one. Nathan Connolly and Shani Mott filed suit against 2020 Valuations LLC, its owner Shane Lanham, and LoanDepot.com on Monday, alleging the defendants, 2020 Valuations LLC, and its owner discriminated against plaintiffs by dramatically undervaluing their home in an appraisal because of plaintiffs' race and their home's location adjacent to a Black census block, notwithstanding that it is also located within Homeland, in an affluent, mostly white neighborhood, and LoanDepot.com discriminated against them by relying on that appraisal in denying their refinancing loan. We've heard this story before. Undervaluation of homes, unable to be able to garner generational wealth by having value in the home you're in. And then when you decide to sell your home, they're undervaluing it compared to everybody around it, not because your house is in bad shape, but because they did their appraisal, and somebody that walked in doing appraisal seen the picture of a Black family on the wall and decided, we're going to mark this down about $300,000. They're not going to get the full amount for this house that they want. I don't care how good a shape this house is in. It's the people that own this house is why they're not going to get it. Malcolm Asbury, good morning, my brother. Appreciate it. Conley and Mott later reapplied with another lender and whitewashed their home. Now, we've seen this too many times, according to the lawsuit. This included, we heard this story before, removing photos of their Black family from the home and having a white colleague present the property to the appraiser. The suit claims this valuation came back at $750,000 more than $250,000 higher than the 2020 valuations appraisal of 472. So you went from an evaluation of 472 up to 750,000, all because you had a white man represent you as the owner of the house. And you took all your pictures down and showed you and your family enjoying themselves and the pictures on the wall in your home. But there's no racism. There's no biases. There's no problems in these United States of America. According to the lawsuit, Lanham allegedly used an appraisal method where he compared the couple's home to properties in a majority Black local area instead of the rest of homeland. Defendant Lanham's decision to geographically limit the area from which he selected comparable sales reflected his belief that because of their race, Dr. Connolly and Dr. Mott, isn't that Dr. Connolly and Dr. Mott, did not belong in homeland, an attractive and predominantly white neighborhood, and that a home with Black homeowners located adjacent to a predominantly Black area is worth less than if it were in whiter areas that he deemed the heart of homeland, the lawsuit alleges. So these two doctors have worked hard to be able to afford their home. No matter what area, no matter what type of neighborhood, this is their home. And you're going to undervalue their home, not because of how it looks, not because of the other homes in the area, just because of who owns it. The couple alleged that Lanham's dramatically lower valuation reflected his beliefs that a Black family did not genuinely belong in homeland and could not be the owners of a higher valued home. Lanham violated professional standards to devalue plaintiff's home because of their racist beliefs. Defendant Loan Depot relied on Lanham's appraisal despite being informed that it was infected by discrimination and stopped answering or returning the plaintiff's calls once they challenged the appraisal on that basis. So when they tried to refinance, they wouldn't even give them that. They wouldn't even refinance them at the rate that they were supposed to. And this is outside of Baltimore, Maryland. That's why I jumped out at me. Home, Maryland. Last year, a Black California couple, and I think I talked about this up in San Francisco. Tanisha Tate Austin and her husband became suspicious when the Northern California home they spent years renovating was valued by an appraiser far lower than they expected. When they asked for a second opinion, a white friend pretended to own their home and they removed all the artwork and photos that could show it. They could show it that it belonged to a Black family. Their new appraisal for their home in Marion County was more than $1.4 million and nearly $500,000 higher than the previous estimate. The Department of Justice filed a statement of interest in the case, which is still pending. And also the one I talked about in Indiana last year where Carlette Duffy concealed that she was Black and she had her home appraised and it was more than double than it was the first time when they knew she was Black. And this is happening more than 50 years after the passing of the Fair Housing Act. And the racial homeowners gap is widened. In 2021, for example, the Black home ownership rate was 44%, while the white home ownership rate reached 74%, according to the Census Bureau. I ain't done. Let's talk about it. Home ownership. We talk about generational wealth when it talks about home ownership, land, those type things. National Association of Realtors said that more Americans own a home now than in any year following the Great Recession, with the U.S. home ownership rate climbing to 65.5% in 2020, according to the National Association of Realtors. That's up 1.3% from 2019. Now, this report was done back in 2020, so bear with me. The numbers are still relevant. Black home ownership is at 43.4%, remains lower than it was a decade ago, and it is nearly 30 percentage points behind white home ownership rate of 72.1%. Meanwhile, the Hispanic home ownership rate rose to an all-time high, reaching over 50% for the first time, and the Asian home ownership rate is 61.7%. Housing affordability and low inventory has made it even more challenging for all buyers to enter into home ownership, but even more so for Black Americans. The disparities highlight the challenges that minority home buyers face. Today, home ownership is the principal source of wealth creation for most American households. Unfortunately, the National Association of Realtors report confirms that Black Americans are being locked out of home ownership opportunities at an even higher rate than a decade ago. Black home ownership, Black Americans are being locked out of home ownership opportunities at an even higher rate than a decade ago. Since 2019, home prices have spiked 30% or an average of about $80,000 for a typical home. Meanwhile, housing inventory has declined to under 1 million units available for sale. And about half of those homes are only affordable to households with at least $100,000 in annual income. While households earning more than $100,000 a year include nearly half of all Asian households and 35% of white households, only 25% of Hispanic households earn that much, and just 20% of Black households do. Only 20% of Black households make over $100,000 a year. The states that are most affordable for Black households to purchase a home are most affordable now: Maryland, West Virginia, Kansas, Ohio, and Indiana. The least affordable states for Black households are Utah, Oregon, California, Nevada, and Rhode Island. Most of the debt that and the reason why African Americans aren't able to purchase homes in this report is because of student debt. Student debt. Because if you have student debt, let's analyze this for a minute. I'm not going to read all this stuff that I highlighted because it's just too much. It's too much when you get into these numbers. But let me just bring this up. Student debt. Tuition right now is probably about, depending on where you're at, and it's been a while since I had to pay any college tuition, to be real, but usually averages about $12,000 a semester, depending. In-state, out-of-state, let's go about $12,000, $13,000 a semester, which comes out to $24,000 to $26,000 a year. And multiply that by 4 years. You're talking about almost $100,000 off the top. Now that's just tuition and room and board. It's not counting books. It's not counting other activities. It's not counting all that other stuff. But general tuition is about $100,000 or more for 4 years. You take a loan out on that, when you get out of college, you're probably paying about $600 a month to pay that loan back, depending, maybe more. I'm just giving you an average, about $600. Then you get to a point, you may have been out of college about 3-4 years, 5, whatever. Now you decide you want to start a family, get a home, and you and your husband or your spouse, your wife, the person you're in love with, y'all decide y'all want to buy a home, start a family. Both of you have college debt. But you got to come up with 20% down for the loan for the home you want. Where are you getting that money from? Where are you getting the money from? See, this is where, and this is just not African American, this is everybody. Anybody that's got student loans, student debt, is going to run into this problem of coming up with that 20% down. Not to include closing costs and so on and so forth, that kind of stuff. I bring this up because when we see this, what we know to be true as far as the debt that you may come out with, your ability to buy a home, your buying power to create generational wealth for your family, to continue to have that home for your kids, to pay and pass on and be able to pull equity out, all those type of things we think about when we talk about a home. And then we see these reports of appraisers and loan companies undervaluing your dream home or otherwise, your generational wealth that you've built, undervaluing that home that you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into. Not because the home is run down and anything's wrong with anything, but because whoever these appraisers are, and they're sprinkled here and there, let's just be honest, decided because you don't look like them or because you're Black, you shouldn't have a home like this. So they're going to undervalue your home so you don't have that money to be able to go and either buy something bigger in a larger community or what they call a majority white area, they're going to stunt your growth as far as your financial standing. And 9 times out of 10, the person that's doing that appraisal probably doesn't have the house like you're living in. Probably doesn't have the means or the education or those type things that would allow you to have that value of a home. They don't have it. And because they don't have it, they're going to make sure that you don't keep it. This is the way that things go. Biases, stereotypes, jealousy, envy, racism, all inclusive. Depending on who you are, depending on where you stand, and depending on what your opinion is about what someone should have compared to what you don't have. When we talk about these things on the show, it's not to make anybody feel bad about what their nationality, their generation, or whoever, whatever may have done or may continue to do. Has nothing to do with that. These conversations are to make you aware that these things are going on. So the next time you see somebody on the news mad because somebody did this or they didn't value them that way or they spoke to them out of their mouth or out of pocket or whatever you want to call it, or you want to put that stereotype that we all steal, we all rob, and they need to follow us around stores and all that kind of stuff, step back for a minute and ask yourself, when has anybody of color done anything to you personally that you feel that anything that anyone says that looks like that person is lying, deceitful, cheating, stealing, drug dealer, rapper, whatever you label you want to put on us? Why? Why? And then ask yourself, why is it that your politicians that you're voting for are so hell-bent on critical race theory, the 1619 Project, any of the things that can clear up a lot of history in this United States of America, what was right, what was wrong, what has been overshadowed, and what has never been reported? What is the fear? What is the fear? Because at the end of the day, as I said on the show, might have been last week before, God created all of us to be great. And if your greatness is achieved by minimizing other folks because of who they are, where they stand, what they look like, and everything like that, how can you still consider yourself to be a Christian? I don't want to get biblical. I don't want to get religious. I'm just putting it out there. How can you call yourself a Christian right, and evangelist and all this stuff? Stand on the principles of the God and the Bible and all these type things when you're still looking down your nose at people that don't look like you only because they don't have the same melanin content, or you don't feel they should have the same rights as you, or you don't feel that they should have anything more than you. Let that marinate. Brian Hoodie, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Let that marinate. See, we gotten to a point where it's not, we have to pick and choose. It's like they've put it out there where you have to pick and choose where you stand, what side you're on. It's not about sides. It's about livelihood. It's about life. It's about living life to the fullest. That's all it's about. It's all it's about. And if people would get past the fact of worrying about who's got more, who's got left. I mean, and I say this along the racial lines, but we got in our own communities. Who's got more, who's got less? We need to let that go. That brother got a bigger house than you. Give that brother praise for working harder and being able to buy more. And stop judging. When you ride by somebody's house or apartment complex and you see a Mercedes-Benz sitting outside that apartment complex, and you come out your mouth and say, damn, they can afford a Benz but can't afford a house. Keep that to yourself. You don't know that person's struggle. You don't know that person's financial responsibility. You don't know anything about that person that he may be able to have a Mercedes and still live in an apartment. And as I just mentioned, home ownership for African Americans is very low. Very low. Very low. Darren Mack, extinction and white supremacy drives the fear. That's it. Fear, I'm going to say it this way, bro. I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it. As Public Enemy said, fear of a black planet. Fear of a black planet. That's what it comes down to. That was an album cover. If anybody didn't know, go look that up. Got a lot of good songs on there. Let's get into this. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. The year 2022. We're taking in 1,440 moments. We got 1,440 minutes in a 24-hour day. Enjoy each and every moment for what it provides to you. Be glad that you woke up this morning. Thank God that you get to see another day. We should do that every day. You don't even have to be a religious individual to know the goodness of God and that he woke you up this morning. Let's get into this. Quote today: to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice your gift. To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice your gift. You know, last week, well, I can't remember what week it was. I say I do this every week, but I talked about we were all created for greatness. And in our greatness, we all have a gift. We all have a gift that God has bestowed upon us that's different than somebody else's gift. You may not recognize your gift. You may still be searching to find out what exactly your gift is. But we all are gifted in our own way. We all are gifted in our own way. That all ran together. Sorry about that. And with these gifts that we have to use those to the benefit, not of ourselves, but of everybody else as well. See, the gifts that God has bestowed upon us aren't by chance. God knew you before your parents knew you. Let's just be real. God knew you better and before your parents knew you. God has put something in each of us that we should consider a gift. Sometimes we don't tap into that gift until later on. You could be 30, 40, 50, 60 years old before you realize what that gift is. But the good thing about that gift that you didn't tap into yet, when you were 10, 12, 14, 15, 20, 30, that gift has always been in you, and you've been putting them breadcrumbs out there. People have recognized what that gift is that you have. And sometimes it takes a long time for us to realize what our gift is. This morning, I would challenge each of y'all, look in the mirror at yourself. Think about everything you've been through. Think about all the things you've accomplished. Think about everyone you've impacted in your life along your way. And then think about what your gift truly is. Some have the gift of gab. I'll consider myself as one of them. Some have the gift of just being there for people. Some have the gift of, compassion. Some have the gift of laughter. These are just some examples of what your gift may be. You may touch people just by being in their presence. All of us have a gift that some of us haven't even started to tap into. But with that gift comes responsibility. Never forget, with that gift comes responsibility. And God's not going to give you that gift not knowing that you'll be responsible with it. Not using it for the good, the bad, the ugly, but for the good only. Trying to help people along the way, helping yourself, being able to pick yourself up, driving to become that person that you know you are supposed to be, rather than the person you think everybody thinks you are. That gift that we have, give your best towards it. Push to be the best person you can be on a daily basis, no matter what anybody has to say, no matter how people may view you. We see people that we grew up with and we see they're in a pulpit. They may be preaching. That's a gift. Now, some are called, some are chosen, some choose. You decide. I'm just saying. but just don't follow false prophets. Let me leave it at that. But the gift that you have, use it. Some have the gift of hands. My mother's a very, very spiritual person. She was gifted with the hands to do hair, and she blessed many people in her life by doing hair. And most of you would say, well, she must have been a good hairstylist. Yeah, she was. But she also a good listener and a good conversationalist and a good guide for those people that sat in that chair. Some of y'all are good mechanics. It's not the fact that you can fix their car in the way that it needs to be fixed, or you can diagnose a problem that quick. It's the blessing that you bring on fixing that person's car as your gift to that person, to the world. See, we minimize and think that a gift has to be an entertainer, an athlete, or somebody up on a big stage. No. Your gift you have is for the people that need it, that are around you every day. Those that need it, those that know you, and those that pick up the phone to call you to inquire, ask, or seek guidance in a decision they may need to make. See, we minimize ourselves from what greatness we have, not because we don't have the gift, but because we haven't tapped into the gift. Remember back in the day, they used to say we're all young, gifted, and black. That was something that they used to put in us and instill in us and talk to us about when we were younger, because they seen the struggles of what we may have to deal with by being black. Now we're old, gifted, and black. Use your gifts. Use the gift God has bestowed upon you. And if you don't know what that gift is, inquire. Because there's a lot of people around you that will be able to tell you exactly what your gift is. You may not know it, you may not recognize it, but trust me, everybody else around you knows exactly what you bring to this world and to their life. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. We'll be back again next week. Remember, September 24th, 10-year anniversary. I'm pretty sure OT got some plans for it, but I'm pretty sure the phone lines are going to be open. Video lines will be open. We'll put all that out there leading up to it. I'm looking forward to the 10-year anniversary show because, you know, as I've said many times, when I come on, when I do my show, I don't do this for me. You know, I look at this as a gift. And let's go back to the quote. To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice your gift. You know, something that I've always known is that I love to talk. Let's just be honest about it. Back in the day, I was just always accused of talking smack. But one thing that I've realized as time has gone on is my gift is the gift of communication. Giving information, providing a different insight on what's going on in the world, to break it down to the simplistic matters of what we know to be true. Right, wrong, and different. Now, sometimes there's times on here that we sugarcoat things and everything, but you know, hey, we sugarcoat it because, you know, there's people involved who may, or that listen, that may not want to hear the full truth. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to give it to you. I may not give it to you as raw as I could. Let's just be honest. But I say that because what we do, what I've been doing with this show in the time that I started, with the gaps here and there, is trying to provide a source of information for people. And if I can get, and I've always said this on the show, if I can get somebody who tuned in this morning to think differently about any of the topics that I thought about, that I talked about this morning, not to change your mind, to just maybe look at it a little differently than you did when you tuned in this morning, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Because in my mind, my mindset is if I can get you to think differently than you did before you tuned in on a subject that you were hell-bent that this is the way, but I was able to sway you to look at it just a little differently than you did before you turn it on this morning. I've done what I wanted to do. And like I said, it's not to change your mind, it's to get a different vision. Because we're programmed a certain way, we look at things a certain way, and we think that's the only way. In some cases. But in some cases, we have to have an open mind, an open thought process, and look at things differently. When I talk about the race relations and things like that, the racism going on in the world, I don't do that because I'm anti-white. I say this all the time. I'm not anti-white. I'm not anti-anything. However, I'm about justice. I'm about equality. And the only way we're going to be able to get people, and it may not impact everybody, but if I can impact a few, And if we all can use our gifts to impact a few along our way, think of how different this world would be. It's not about changing people's minds. It's about trying to get them to see things differently than maybe they were taught. As I posted last week about the guy who's a white nationalist. If you haven't seen it, go watch it on the TED Talk on the page, on my Facebook page. But to think differently about what you've been told, because sometimes everything we're told ain't the truth. Everything that we're shown is not the truth. And everything we think is right could be totally wrong. But because it's already ingrained in our brain, we don't think there's any other way to see it. I'm not gonna go any deeper than that, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. Brother Banks, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. I appreciate everybody tuning in. And like I said, 10-year anniversary is coming up. We're gonna talk in depth about this. Got some changes coming at the first of the year. I'm not gonna change it right now. First of the year, we got some changes coming up, but we're gonna keep on doing what we're doing. I appreciate everybody tuning in. For all my military buddies that tune in, hey man, we're brothers till we die. I appreciate y'all. The service we served together, the things we did, whether it was on courts, softball fields, in uniform, doing what we do. I love all y'all, man. Y'all help make me the man I've become. For everybody else out there who's a friend by association through travels and trials or whatever it may be, I feel the same way about you, because what I do on this show is remnants of everything I've collected from everybody who's been in my life up to this point. And I appreciate y'all for that. As I always say before I sign off, y'all say it with me today. Come on now. Love yourself. Love one another. Keep your head up. And most definitely, keep your faith in God. He's giving you a gift. Use it. Use it. Exhaust it until your last breath. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'll holler at y'all next week. I'm out.